2, 3.
Good morning and welcome to worship for the Unitarian Universalist community of Charlotte. I'm Jay Leach, one of the ministers of our congregation, and I'm delighted that you are here for this virtual service. If you're familiar with Charlotte, you may very well recognize that I am now in Marshall Park, uptown. It's early morning, quiet, empty. There's a sense of tranquility and calm as our city is just beginning to stir. However, as many of you know, it is not nearly always so tranquil here. For years, Marshall Park has been the place that many of us have gathered to call attention to matters of deep concern. In my first few months here, now many years ago, I led a small group in a vigil here on the occasion of another state-sanctioned killing through capital punishment. It is here that we have decried injustice and denounced inequality. It is here that we've come to mourn certain deaths in our community and in our nation. It is here that we've held vigils and protests, begun and ended marches, shouted and sung, waved signs and banners, lit candles, and held deep silence. And when the uprising was rekindled here earlier this year, we came back to Marshall Park again and again to declare that Black lives matter and to demand the end to police brutality and murder. Now, all of that may sound very hard and heavy, and in a certain way, it has been and it is. Like some of you, I've experienced my share of rage and outrage, heartbreak and sorrow while sitting here in this park or while leading from in front of a crowd here. And yet when I come here to this park, now filled with so many memories for me, I can't help but think of all of those with whom I've gathered, including many of you, colleagues, friends, people I admire and respect and love, people I've met here in this park, and people with whom I've reconnected because we've come here together once again. You see, the work, no matter the issue, has always been shared, created and sustained by a community of people, a community created out of common concern and of values that align. I'm sure I'll be back here soon, and not on a tranquil morning, to create a recording for a service. And when I come, I'll find here again a community, my community. Those who share my deep longing for a world so very different from the one in which we now live. Today we conclude our summer-long series of services around the theme, Celebrating Community. As we do so, we've invited some of our members to share how they too have found community through working for the common good. They'll remind us that such work is not the grim and thankless calling of altruists, but of those who always find community whenever they venture out beyond their walls, beyond our walls, in some effort devoted to the common good. My thanks to each of them for what they will be sharing with us today. My thanks also to our dear former members, Ed and Rosanna Stokes, who generously returned to enhance and enliven our service with their music. You heard them along with their son-in-law on the song that opened this service, and you'll get to experience them again as it proceeds. They've generously created the videos you'll view specifically for this service. Ed, Rosanna, our collective thanks to you. Again, welcome, especially if you're new to this, just looking in to see what we are about. We're glad you've chosen to be a part of us today. While we listen in on our congregation singing, a reminder of the energy that we share when we gather together, I hope you'll go to our public Facebook page. Just look for the Unitarian Universalist Community of Charlotte and post warm words of welcome to one another. Welcome. I'm glad that we are together again today.
I'm June Blotnick.
And I'm Doug C. These past weeks, we have been watching in horror the rising danger to our nation posed by the stoking of reckless behavior, rampant self-interest, willful misinformation, and racial and economic division.
Surely, there is no more important time to be reminded that we are all connected, interdependent, part of one tattering fabric, that our very survival depends upon building a strong sense of community and working for the common good.
In that frightened but determined spirit, we proudly light our flaming chalice.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Sullivan, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about the work I do with homelessness and affordable housing. And I suppose I should start at the beginning. Back in 2012, I retired, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was too antsy just to sit around. So I thought, well, maybe I'll play a bunch of bridge. I mean, that would be fun and not very meaningful. Perhaps I could run for a local office, but my wife Lori nixed that one pretty quick. What could I do that would be meaningful to me and of value to the community? While I was thinking through that, I stopped by the social justice table in Freeman Hall, and I saw that there was an advocacy team. Their mission was to advocate on behalf of people who are homeless and people that were lacking affordable housing. And I said that I was interested in the work, but had no knowledge of what it entailed. And you know how it goes. They drew me in, and pretty soon I was working with Nancy Cook and Phyllis Bertkey, Peg Chapin, Ann Wood from the advocacy team. And I was introduced to others at the UUCC that worked long and hard around social justice in the community. And I became involved in groups outside the UUCC, groups that inspired me. And one thing led to another. And currently, I work with Habitat for Humanity. I'm the chair of the Homeowner Selection Committee. We interview families who would like to get into the Habitat program and get a Habitat home. I'm the co-chair of the Homeless Services Network advocacy team. We work with the county and the city and the community to address issues of homelessness. I'm also the chair of the One MEC Affordable Housing Committee. We push the city and the county to invest more energy and more money in solving the critical lack of affordable housing. And the thing that inspires me about this work is the people I've met. For example, I've met people that have overcome great adversity. I met a man from Senegal in my work with Habitat who wanted a Habitat home. He had come from Senegal alone and penniless, and he left 4 daughters behind. And as he earned enough money, he would bring another daughter to the United States, And he was about to be reunited with his last daughter after many years of separation. And we were able to get him into a habitat home for them all to live. Another young man I met in room in the inn at the UUCC, about 20 years old, had gone to Myers Park High School, gotten into college, and things were going well for him. But his parents went through a very contentious separation, and they cut him off so suddenly that he became homeless. And he had joined the army, but he couldn't get in right away. So through room in the inn, we were able to help him get through a very difficult time in his life. And through this work, I've met some people that inspire me, that have dedicated their lives to helping others. Just a couple of shining stars that I'll highlight. Liz Clayson Kelly over at Roof Above. Liz is just warm and caring. She's so compassionate that she has a way of co-opting others. I'll be in a meeting with Liz, and suddenly just everybody's agreeing with her. And then there's Carol Hardison over at Christ Assistance Ministry, and she is just so energized. She can talk really fast, and she just gets everybody on board with what she's trying to do and what we need to do. And then there's Justin Perry, who's a founder of One Mech. Justin is just so dedicated. He's got a family, he runs a business, but he finds time to be very active in the community. And Justin has a deep and resonant voice, and when it's just so compelling when he speaks about justice. And believe it or not, I've met some local government officials that are dedicated and hardworking and believe in what they do. People like City Council members Braxton Winston and Renee Johnson, and County Commissioner Mark Jarrell. I don't always agree with what they do, but I always believe that they're doing their best to do the right thing. And it gives me inspiration during these times of weaponized politics to work with people like that. So in the last few years, I've been working on issues of homelessness and affordable housing, and I've met a great many inspiring people. It's work both with the community and for the community, and it gives me courage and hope for the future.
Good morning. My name is Megan Van Fleet, and I've been a member of this community for 12 years. Though I've been an activist in some form or another since high school, I really didn't get involved in activism in North Carolina until the Moral Monday movement in 2013. My son Jeff and I would drive to Raleigh each Monday, and I'd stroll him around listening to amazing speakers call out the many injustices present in our government. Though I found the experience moving and very informative, it was more isolating than engaging. I dabbled in other activities in Charlotte, but besides the UUCC, I never really found a consistent place to plug in. Fast forward to 2016 and the protests and aftermath surrounding the murder by police of Keith Lamont Scott and subsequently Justin Carr. There was no longer an opportunity to be disengaged. The goal became clear, though simultaneously muddled with doubt and questions, as I struggled to peel away the hold that white supremacy had on me. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, seeking liberation for all. What this has come to mean for me in the years since 2016 is comparable to Remicka Bingham's poem, Marchers Headed for Washington, Baltimore, 1963. It's been read both in previous UUCC services and again in the Racial Justice Core Group this past year. In the poem, Bingham describes a grandmother's dedication and pride in preparing meals for those walking by their home in Baltimore en route to the March on Washington. This is for the journey, my mama said, in hopes that none of you will ever stop. For me, community has become about care such as this. In my soul, I'm a mom and a caregiver. I have developed deep familial relationships with some of those leading the activism in Charlotte, but I also check in on many others, and they know to count on me to help with logistics for housing, funding, and general support. Among other things, I've washed laundry, given rides, cleaned out apartments, cooked food, helped with childcare, sat and listened. And as a result, my soul feels the world shifting. While marching in the streets is where the largest community spirit is present, and if you're able, it can be so moving to be out there when you aren't getting tear gassed. Building relationships where we can all grow is what community really is about. Taking care of one another, meeting the needs that our society has failed, liberating ourselves collectively, and committing to build the world we want to live in. That's love, and that's community. Building a world where the common good is valued over individual achievement, where we all have enough and are enough. We all must understand and live by the words of Indigenous activist Lilla Watson as we enter into this work. If you have come to help me, you are wasting your time. If you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. Though I know the work I do is important, I also know that the success of the movement is not dependent on Megan. I have seen some truly amazing moments of what community can be for one another. While there are lows, and they can be devastatingly low, I have been brought to tears by those working for the common good. And I'll share a few highlights. A home and a backyard for a family experiencing chronic homelessness. Bringing a friend brand new to protest who willingly locked arms on the front line, has been tear gassed and arrested by police, but who continues to do the work and be the change. Coming home from the hospital with a diagnosis and medication after my non-binary friend was finally taken seriously by a doctor. Hearing my kids join their voices to Black Lives Matter chants, knowing that in their minds, Black lives have always mattered. I think back to those Moral Mondays when we would have a dance party and play music before people would march into the legislative building, mostly with the aim of being arrested, because, as Reverend Barber claimed, we're going to be the side of justice that's having a good time. How sweet will liberation feel? I can't wait to go to that dance party. I read from the I Am children's book series by Peter H. Reynolds almost every night to my two boys, and this closing from I Am Love feels like a fitting closing for today. I can breathe in the air that the whole world shares and know all creatures are made from the very same stardust. Love is connection. And with love, we will weather the storm and light up the sky together.
If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every woman, calling every man. We're the generation. We can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, and we're already late. We've been looking for a song to sing, searched for a tune and someone to lead. We've been looking for the world to change. If you feel the same, then go on and say, if you're out there, sing along with me if you're out there. I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. broken promises, no call to war unless it's love and peace that we're fighting for. We can destroy hunger, we can conquer hate. Put down the arms and raise the voice, we're holding hands today. I was looking for a song to sing. I searched for a leader, but the leader was me. And we were looking for the world to change. We can be heroes just for one day. If you're out there, sing along with me. If you're out there, I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's starting now. Starts within. We don't have to wait for destiny. We should be the change we want to see. If you're out there, if you're out there, if you're out there and you're ready now, say it loud, scream it out. If you're out there, sing along with me. If you're out there, believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's starting now. 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 Oh, now. Now. Now.
Hi everyone, I'm Justin Parmenter and I'm a local public school teacher. And I've been a teacher for 25 years, but in the last few years I've gotten really involved in working on education advocacy work. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today. I started getting involved with that community of education advocates in 2016 through a fellowship which helped me to learn about the intersection between education policy and political power in North Carolina. And I learned about the absence of rank and file educators at just about every meaningful table in the policy design process. And it seemed like it wasn't an accident. And as I started to dig deeper into that, I started learning that not only were the majority of the education policies that we had developed without input from professional educators, but quite often the people that seemed to have the most influence on the policy process were people who didn't share the same values that me and my colleagues had, and that most families who were sending their kids to our schools had. People who, instead, the people who seemed to be influencing those policies, in a lot of cases saw education as a commodity rather than a human right. And in many cases, their goals were things like financial benefit or deepening racial and economic segregation. So I started to get involved in advocacy work for the benefit of a community of students and colleagues. But at the outset, I was working pretty much on my own. I began to speak out publicly and in print about matters like standardized testing, building conditions, funding for education, tax policy, the devaluing of the arts and things like that. And the feedback I got when I started doing that work was great. I remember the first thing that I ever wrote for a broad audience was an op-ed for the Charlotte Observer about the negative impact of standardized testing on our students. And I had so many parents express their appreciation to me for being willing to speak out about a matter that they all felt when they were sitting around talking with their kids at the dinner table. And so that was a meaningful connection because it felt like I was helping to give that community a voice that had previously not been there. So I continued to work on honing my communication skills and learning more about how to influence policy at the local and state levels. And I enjoyed what felt like a lot of personal success at that work. But as time went on, I began more and more to examine my place within the larger community of educators and to think about what my original goal was, which was to bring more educator voices into the policy space and ultimately to improve outcomes for our students. And that was bring more voices, plural, into that space. And I noticed that there were a lot of voices that were still not being heard. And many of them were people with perspectives and skills that I didn't have, oftentimes from traditionally marginalized populations. And I started to worry that my own work could in some cases be dominating that space and crowding out opportunities for others to get involved. So I ran for and was elected to a position within our statewide Teachers Association, the North Carolina Association of Educators, or NCAE. And now my focus has broadened to include not just working on my own, but empowering other educators to advocate for themselves and for their students outside the classrooms. The region that I work with includes Mecklenburg County, but it also includes some rural counties like Union County and Gaston County, where it's a lot scarier for educators to speak truth to power. But seeing teachers who have been beat down so long by a system that's happy to use them up and cast them aside, to be able to stand up and say, no, this is wrong what's happening, and here's my personal story to help you understand why. That's helped me feel much more connected to the broader community of educators who share the value of public education as a human right and are committed to working towards reforms that center our students and help to improve the experience that they have in our schools. So that's my community connection, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story, and I look forward to the day when I can see you all again soon.
Hi UUCC community, my name is Kathryn and I have been attending for 8 years. Years ago I had worked with a former UUCC member who was actively involved in environmental and societal justice initiatives. He was aware of me attending workshops, vigils, and other events that centered these issues, so one night he invited me to a Greenpeace meeting that was particularly family friendly. After spending some time connecting with other parents, discussing how great it was to have an opportunity to engage our kids in social issues we cared about, my daughter Allison commented that she had actually just shared a bus seat with one of the other kids for a field trip at school earlier that same day. Turns out that they were classmates, which caused another source of connection. My communities had collided: kids' school, work, and UUCC. Through Greenpeace, I was introduced to amazing, brilliant activists in the Charlotte area and invited to different events where these connections were strengthened. One particular turning point was one evening when some local activists were having a picnic in Uptown and invited me. During this time, I was asked to speak in front of the school board on a Greenpeace initiative. Initially, I said no due to my fear of public speaking. After declining, someone said, "It can't be the same people. After a while, we look crazy." They then proceeded to educate me on how the optics look different when it's a white soccer mom being involved. While I was mulling this over, Bree Newsom and Jimmy Tyson arrived at the picnic. This was just days after removing the Confederate flag in South Carolina, being monitored by the government, and receiving death threats. Suddenly speaking to the school board about environmental initiatives didn't seem so bad, and a sense of responsibility to my community set in. After speaking to the school board, I didn't die, and my engagement became more involved, including more public speaking, phone banking, and canvassing. During these events, I got to connect with people in ways I didn't think I could have imagined years prior. We bonded over work and ideas coming to fruition. I was learning ideologies surrounding liberation over pizza, and I didn't feel so alone in my beliefs. My kids were also bonding with these wonderful people, and their village grew too. They would babysit, come to birthday parties, and actively engage with them on social issues. While the Charlotte uprising in 2016 was absolutely horrific in many ways, There was another story happening behind the scenes. At the base camp, I saw something beautiful. I saw a community come together. People were coming together to donate and organize supplies, babysitting so parents could contribute, learning how to do medic training and legal aid, among other needed roles. I saw a community where everyone could fill a role and do their part to support one another. I see that same energy currently happening with jail support. For me, community is where I find my spiritual grounding. While I appreciate the beauty of nature, for me there is nothing more beautiful than people, often total strangers, coming together to support each other and offering up their strengths to work together for a better world. Thanks.
Gonna keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Keep on walking proudly. Keep on walking proudly. Keep on walking proudly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna keep on singing loudly. Keep on singing loudly. Keep on singing loudly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. 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 Never turning back.
Welcome again to this morning's service. I'm glad that we are together, if only virtually. Some of you may be joining us for the first time or for one of your first times. And we're particularly happy that you have found us in this virtual way. You may want to know more about our congregation. If you'd like to find out more about who we are and what we are about, you can talk with our membership coordinator. Her name is Kelly Green, and she would love to have a conversation with you. You can reach her by email at Kelly, Kelly, at UUCCharlotte.org. For both those of you who may be new and for all of our members, I point your attention to our electronic newsletter Currents, where you'll find much more about the life of our congregation in this immediate time. Members, you'll want to note, particularly in the upcoming issue of Currents, that we will be introducing our theme for this year, our 2020-2021 worship theme, the theme that will guide us in our focus as a congregation in this coming year. We gather always mindful that there are concerns within our own congregation, that there are different ones of us who are experiencing life under the weight of some concern for themselves or for someone they love. And so we are sending special love on this day to Sharon Walker and to Dave Walsh as Sharon continues her recovery from a bike accident. We continue as a community to send love to John and Mary Lee as they carry the weighty concern for John's brother in his final days of life. We hold our beloved member Morty Rubel and his family with love as Morty is now under the care of hospice. We are aware that not only Justin Parmenter, but many other members of our congregation are teachers in one setting and another. And many in our congregation are kids who are in school. And we're sending love to you in this particularly challenging time. We as a hold with deep concern, with prayers in our hearts, the communities of Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Rochester, New York, and Minneapolis, and Louisville, and Atlanta, and Portland, places where people are so deeply angry and sad, and who wonder when or if their lives will ever really matter. And then we extend our love all the way out to our planet, under siege, showing with unmistakable force now the inevitable impact of the devastation we humans have caused and are causing. In order to be the community that we aspire to be, we need your support. Thank you to those of you who in this month of September will be making new pledges. Thank you to those of you who continue to pay on generous pledges. Thank you to those of you aware that we can't gather in person and who continue to send special contributions each week to sustain the work of our congregation. We are immensely grateful for your very important support. There is perhaps something particularly appropriate about the fact that as we come now to the time in our service that we devote to meditation and to aspiration, to going deep within ourselves, even as we stretch our spirit so far beyond ourselves, that we overhear the life of our city as it is awakening. This setting on the edge of Marshall Park may look tranquil, but it is right next to a busy street with life all around us. I invite you to quiet yourself, though this setting is not quiet, to settle into where you are, to deepen your breathing, to close your eyes and open your hearts. Spirit of life enlivening each of us. O God, O Goddess of all people, thou, expression of our highest hopes projected, our hearts ache on this day, mourning injuries, shootings, attacks, deaths, lamenting disrespect and utter deprecation, sorrowing over losses so deep they shake us to our core, grieving what we now are as a community and as a nation, groaning along with all of creation, the devastation felt around the globe. Our spirits, our souls are weary, tired of the way life is in this pandemic, tired of too much talk and too little action, tired of too much talk and the wrong kinds of actions. Tired of one more day of tweets and lies and hypocrisy and hubris, and of those who continue to deny and enable and support such disgusting things. We feel it in our guts, in our breathing, in our heart rate. We feel the anger and the outrage, and we do not like what it is doing to us. So today, especially today, we are grateful, deeply grateful for communities we have discovered that share our values, that support our causes, that call us into partnership and co-conspiracy with them, that challenge and sustain us, that refuse to accept that the ways things are the way they must remain. For all those who work for the common good, who care for our unhoused neighbors, who commit to uprising, who teach and advocate, who serve as gadflies, troubling us. For those who care for our air, who fight the good fight in legal settings, who send meaningful, deep, generous financial support, who watch courts and make calls, who help tend wounded psyches, who help care for our sick and our aging, who help care for our youngest, our most vulnerable. May all such feel on this day the stirring of renewal, the second or third or 300th wind, a determination fiercer even than their opposition, a love deeper even than they realized possible. May we see, even in these dark and discouraging days, some breaking of a new dawn, a new day, one marked by dismantling and defunding, one signaling the destruction of deep-rooted supremacies and the birth of true and lasting transformation. This is our prayer. These are our deepest emotions. These are our highest hopes. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be. My dear colleague Wayne Arneson's words are so apt on this day. Take them into your heart and your soul and carry them with you until we are together again. Wayne writes, "Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone." Don't stop watching just yet. There's one more treat from Ed and Rosanna, and a final written message from a vigil that was held here in Marshall Park after that. Go with courage. Go with courage, my friends.
Better times will come. Better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come. When we greet each dawn without fear, knowing loved ones soon will be near. When the winds of war cannot blow anymore, oh, better times will come. Better times will come. Better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come. Though we live each day as our last, we know someday soon it will pass. We will dance, we will sing in that never-ending spring. Oh, better times will come. Better times will come. Better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come. Better times will come. Better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come.